The higher knowledge and the higher love are one to the true lover. The Upanishads distinguish between a higher knowledge and a lower knowledge, and to the Bhakta there is really no difference between this higher knowledge and his higher love, para bhakti. The Mundaka Upanishad says, "The knowers of Brahman declare that there are two kinds of knowledge worthy to be known, namely, the higher, or para, and the lower, or apara. Of these, the lower knowledge consists of the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, the Atharva Veda, the Shiksha, or the science dealing with pronunciation and accent, the Kalpa, or the sacrificial liturgy, grammar, the Nirukta, or the science dealing with etymology and the meaning of words, prosody, and astronomy, and the higher knowledge is that by which the unchangeable is known. The higher knowledge is thus clearly shown to be the knowledge of Brahman, and the Devi Bhagavata gives us the following definition of the higher love or para bhakti. As oil poured from one vessel to another falls in an unbroken line, so when the mind is in an unbroken stream, thinks of the Lord, we have what is called para bhakti or supreme love. This kind of undisturbed and ever steady direction of the mind and the heart to the Lord with an inseparable attachment is indeed the highest manifestation of man's love to God. All other forms of bhakti are only preparatory to the attainment of this highest form thereof, the para bhakti, which is also known as the love that comes after attachment, or raganuga. When this supreme love once comes into the heart of man, his mind will continuously think of God and remember nothing else. He will give no room in himself to thoughts other than those of God, and his soul will be unconquerably pure, and will alone break all the bonds of mind and matter, and become serenely free. He alone can worship the Lord in his own heart. To him, forms, symbols, books, and doctrines are all unnecessary and are incapable of proving serviceable in any way. It is not easy to love the Lord thus. Ordinary human love is seen to flourish only in places where it is returned. Where love is not returned for love, cold indifference is the natural result. There are, however, rare instances in which we may notice love exhibiting itself even where there is no return of love. We may compare this kind of love, for purposes of illustration, to the love of the moth for the fire. The insect loves the fire, falls into it, and dies. It is indeed in nature of the insect to love so. To love because it is the nature of love to love is undeniably the highest and the most unselfish manifestation of love that may be seen in the world. Such love, working itself out on the plane of spirituality, necessarily leads to the attainment of para bhakti. The triangle of love. We may represent love as a triangle. each of the angles of which corresponds to one of its inseparable characteristics. There can be no triangle without all its three angles, and there can be no true love without its three following characteristics. The first angle of our triangle of love is that love knows no bargaining. Wherever there is any seeking for something in return, there can be no real love. It becomes a mere matter of shopkeeping. As long as there is in us any idea of deriving this or that favor from God in return for our respect and allegiance to Him, so long there can be no true love growing in our hearts. Those who worship God because they wish Him to bestow favors on them are sure not to worship Him if those favors are not forthcoming. The Bhakta loves the Lord because He is lovable. There is no other motive originating or directing this divine emotion of the true devotee. We have heard it said that a great king once went into a forest and there met a sage. He talked with the sage a little and was very much pleased with his purity and wisdom. The king then wanted the sage to oblige him by receiving a present from him. The sage refused to do so, saying, "The fruits of the forest are enough food for me. The pure streams of water flowing down from the mountains give enough of drink for me. The barks of the trees supply me with enough of covering, and the caves of the mountains form my home. Why should I take any present from you or from anybody?" The king said, "Just to benefit me, sir, please take something from my hands, and please come with me to the city and to my palace." After much persuasion, the sage at last consented to do as the king desired, and went with him to his palace. Before offering the gift to the sage, the king repeated his prayers, saying, "Lord, give me more children. Lord, give me more wealth. Lord, give me more territory. Lord, keep my body in better health," and so on. Before the king finished saying his prayer, the sage had got up and walked away from the room quietly. At this, the king became perplexed and began to follow him, crying aloud, "Sir, you are going away. You have not received my gifts." The sage turned round to him and said, "I do not beg of beggars. You are yourself nothing but a beggar, and how can you give me anything? I am no fool to think of taking anything from a beggar like you. Go away, do not follow me." There is well brought out of the distinction between mere beggars and the real lovers of God. Begging is not the language of love. To worship God even for the sake of salvation or any other reward is equally degenerate. Love knows no reward. Love is always for love's sake. The Bhakta loves because he cannot help loving. When you see a beautiful scenery and fall in love with it, you do not demand anything in the way of favor from the scenery, nor does the scenery demand anything from you. Yet the vision thereof brings you to a blissful state of mind. It tones down all the friction in your soul. It makes you calm, almost raises you, for the time being, beyond your mortal nature, and places you in a condition of quite divine ecstasy. This nature of real love is the first angle of our triangle. Ask not anything in return for your love. Let your position be always that of the giver. Give your love unto God, but do not ask anything in return, even from Him. The second angle of the triangle of love is that love shows no fear. Those that love God through fear are the lowest forms of human beings, quite undeveloped as men. They worship God from fear of punishment. He is a great being to them, with a whip in one hand and a scepter in the other. If they do not obey him, they are afraid they will be whipped. It is a degradation to worship God through fear of punishment. Such worship is, if worship at all, the crudest form of worship of love. As long as there is any fear in the heart, how can there be love also? Love conquers naturally all fear. Think of a young mother in the street and a dog barking at her. She is frightened and flies into the nearest house. But suppose the next day she is in the street with her child, and a lion springs upon the child. Where will be her position now? Of course, in the very mouth of the lion, protecting her child. Love conquers all fear. Fear comes from the selfish idea of cutting oneself off from the universe. The smaller and the more selfish I make myself, the more is my fear. If a man thinks he is a little nothing, fear will surely come upon him. And the less you think of yourself as an insignificant person, the less fear there will be for you. So long as there is the least spark of fear in you, there can be no love there. Love and fear are incompatible. God is never to be feared by those who love him. The commandment, "Do not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain," the true lover of God laughs at. How can there be any blasphemy in the religion of love? The more you take the name of the Lord, the better for you, in whatever way you may do it. You are only repeating his name because you love him. The third angle of the love triangle is that love knows no rival, for in it is always embodied the lover's highest ideal. True love never comes until the object of our love becomes to us our highest ideal. It may be that in many cases human love is misdirected or misplaced, but to the person who loves, the thing he loves is always his own highest ideal. One may see his ideal in the vilest of beings, and another in the highest of beings. Nevertheless, in every case, it is the ideal alone that can be truly and intensely loved. The highest ideal of every man is called God. Ignorant or wise, saint or sinner, man or woman, educated or uneducated, cultivated or uncultivated, to every human being, the highest ideal is God. The synthesis of all the highest ideals of beauty, of sublimity, and of power gives us the completest conception of the loving and lovable God. These ideals exist in some shape or another in every mind naturally. They form a part and parcel of all our minds. All the active manifestations of human nature are struggles of those ideals to become realized in practical life. All the various movements that we see around us in society are caused by the various ideals in various souls trying to come out and become concretized. What is inside presses on to come outside. This perennially dominant influence of the ideal is the one force, the one motive power that may be seen to be constantly working in the midst of mankind. It may be hundreds of births after struggling through thousands of years that man finds that it is vain to try to make the inner ideal mold completely the external conditions and square well with them. After realizing this, he no more tries to project his own ideal on the outside world, but worships the ideal itself as ideal from the highest standpoint of love. This ideally perfect ideal embraces all lower ideals. Everyone admits the truth of the saying that a lover sees Helen's beauty on an epitaph's brow. The man who is standing aside as a looker-on sees that love is here misplaced, but the lover sees his Helen all the same and does not see epitaphs at all. Helen or epitaph, the objects of our love, are really the centers round which our ideals become crystallized. What is it that the world commonly worships? Not certainly this all-embracing, ideally perfect ideal of the supreme devotee and lover. That ideal which men and women commonly worship is what is in themselves. Every person projects his or her own ideal on the outside world and kneels before it. That is why we find that men who are cruel and bloodthirsty conceive of a bloodthirsty God, because they can only love their own highest ideal. That is why good men have a very high ideal of God, and their ideal is indeed so very different from that of others. The God of love is his own proof. What is the ideal of the lover who has quite passed beyond the idea of selfishness, of bartering and bargaining, and who knows no fear? Even to the great God, such a man will say, I will give you my all, and I do not want anything from you. Indeed, there is nothing I can call my own. When a man has acquired this conviction, his ideal becomes one of perfect love, one of perfect fearlessness of love. The highest ideal of such a person has no narrowness of particularity about it. It is love universal, love without limits and bonds, love itself, absolute love. This grand ideal of the religion of love is worshipped and loved absolutely, as such without the aid of any symbols or suggestions. This is the highest form of para-bhakti, the worship of such an all-comprehending ideal as the ideal. All the other forms of bhakti are only stages on the way to reach it. All our failures and all our successes in following the religion of love are on the road to the realization of that one ideal. Object after object is taken up, and the inner ideal is successively projected onto them all. And all such external objects are found inadequate as exponents of the ever-expanding inner ideal, and are naturally rejected one after another. At last, the aspirant begins to think that it is in vain to try to realize the ideal in external objects, that all external objects are as nothing when compared with the ideal itself. And in the course of time, he acquires the power of realizing the highest and the most generalized abstract ideal entirely as an abstraction that is to him quite alive and real. When the devotee has reached this point, he is no more impelled to ask whether God can be demonstrated or not, whether he is omnipotent and omniscient or not. To him, he is only the God of love. He is the highest ideal of love, and that is sufficient for all his purposes. He, as love, is self-evident. It requires no proofs to demonstrate the existence of the beloved to the lover. The magistrate gods of other forms of religion may require a good deal of proof to prove them, but the Bhakta does not, and cannot think of such gods at all. To him, God exists entirely as love. None, O beloved, loves the husband for the husband's sake, but it is for the sake of the self who is in the husband that the husband is loved. None, O beloved, loves the wife for the wife's sake, but it is for the sake of the self who is in the wife that the wife is loved. It is said by some that selfishness is the only motive power in regard to all human activities. That also is love lowered by being particularized. When I think of myself as comprehending the universal, there can surely be no selfishness in me. But when I, by mistake, think that I am a little something, my love becomes particularized and narrowed. The mistake consists in making the sphere of love narrow and contracted. All things in the universe are of divine origin and deserve to be loved. It has, however, to be borne in mind that the love of the whole includes the love of the parts. This whole is the God of the Bhaktas and all the other gods, fathers in heaven or rulers or creators, and all theories and doctrines and books have no purpose and no meaning for them, seeing that they have, through their supreme love and devotion, risen above those things altogether. When the heart is purified and cleansed and filled to the brim with the divine nectar of love, all other ideas of God become simply puerile and are rejected as being inadequate or unworthy. Such is indeed the power of Parabhakti or supreme love, and the perfected Bhakta no more goes to see God in temples and churches. He knows no place where he will not find him. He finds him in the temple, as well as out of the temple. He finds him in the saint's saintliness, as well as in the wicked man's wickedness, because he has him already seated in glory in his own heart as the one almighty, indistinguishable light of love, which is ever shining and eternally present. Human representations of the divine ideal of love. It is impossible to express the nature of this supreme and absolute ideal of love in human language. Even the highest flight of human imagination is incapable of comprehending it in all its infinite perfection and beauty. Nevertheless, the followers of the religion of love, in its higher as well as its lower forms, in all countries, have all along had to use the inadequate human language to comprehend and to define their own ideal of love. Nay, more, human love itself, in all its varied forms, has been made to typify this inexpressible divine love. Man can think of divine things only in his own human way. To us, the absolute can be expressed only in our relative language. The whole universe is to us a writing of the infinite in the language of the finite. Therefore, bhaktas make use of all the common I terms associated with common love of humanity in relation to God and his worship through love. Some of the great writers on Parabhakti have tried to understand and experience this divine love in so many different ways. The lowest form in which this love is apprehended is what they call the peaceful, the Shanta. When a man worships God without the fire of love in him, without its madness in his brain, when his love is just the calm, commonplace love, a little higher than mere forms and ceremonies and symbols, but not at all characterized by the madness of intensely active love, it is said to be Shanta. We see some people in the world who like to move on slowly, and others who come and go like the whirlwind. The Shanta Bhakta is calm, peaceful, gentle. The next higher type is that of Dasya, or servantship. It comes when a man thinks he is a servant of the Lord. The attachment of the faithful servant unto his master is his ideal. The next type of love is Sakhya Friendship. Thou art our beloved friend. Just as a man opens his heart to his friend and knows that the friend will never chide him for his faults, but will always try to help him, just as there is the idea of equality between him and his friend, so equal love flows in and out between the worshipper and his friendly God. Thus, God becomes our friend, the friend who is near, the friend to whom we may freely tell all the tales of our lives. The innermost secrets of our hearts we may place before him with the great assurance of safety and support. He is the friend whom the devotee accepts as an equal. God is viewed here as our playmate. We may as well say that we are all playing in this universe, just as children play their games, just as the most glorious kings and emperors play their own games. So it is the beloved Lord himself in sport with the universe. He is perfect. He does not want anything. Why should he create? Activity is always with us for the fulfillment of a certain want, and want always presupposes imperfection. God is perfect. He has no wants. Why should he go on with this work of an ever-active creation? What purpose has he in view? The stories about God creating this world for some end or another that we imagine are good as stories, but not otherwise. It is all really in sport. The universe is his play going on. The whole universe must, after all, be a big piece of pleasing fun to him. If you are poor, enjoy that as fun. If you are rich, enjoy the fun of being rich. If dangers come, it is also good fun. If happiness comes, there is more good fun. The world is just a playground, and we are here having good fun, having a game. And God is with us all, playing all the while, and we are with him playing. God is our eternal playmate. How beautiful he is playing. The play is finished when the cycle comes to an end. There is rest for a shorter or longer time. Again, all come out and play. It is only when you forget that it is all play, and that you are also helping in the play, that it becomes the misery and sorrows. Then the heart becomes heavy, then the word weighs upon you with tremendous power. But as soon as you give up the idea of reality as a characteristic of the changing incidents of the 3 minutes of life, and know it to be but a stage on which we are playing, helping him to play, at once misery ceases for you. He plays in every atom. He is playing when he is building up earths and suns and moons. He is playing with the human heart, with animals and with plants. We are his chessmen. He puts the chessmen on the board and shakes them up. He arranges us first in one way and then in another, and we are consciously or unconsciously helping in his play. And oh bliss, we are his playmates. The next is what is known as Vatsalya, loving God not as our father, but as our child. This may look peculiar, but it is a discipline to enable us to detach all ideas of power from the concept of God. The idea of power brings with it awe. There should be no awe in love. The ideas of reverence and obedience are necessary for the formation of character. But when a character is formed, when the lover has tasted the calm, peaceful love and tasted also a little of its intense madness, then he needs to talk no more of ethics and discipline. To conceive God as mighty, majestic, and glorious, as the Lord of the universe, or as the God of gods, the lover says he does not care. It is to avoid this association with God of the fear-creating sense of power that he worships God as his own child. The mother and the father are not moved by awe in relation to the child. They cannot have any reverence for the child. They cannot think of asking any favor from the child. The child's position is always that of the receiver. And out of love for the child, the parents will give up their bodies 100 times over. 1,000 lives they will sacrifice for that one child of theirs. And therefore God is loved as a child. This idea of loving God as a child comes into existence and grows naturally among those religious sects which believe in the incarnation of God. For the Mohammedan, it is impossible to have this kind of idea of God as a child. They will shrink from it with a kind of horror. But the Christian and the Hindu can realize it easily, because they have the baby Jesus and the baby Krishna. The women in India often look upon themselves as Krishna's mother. Christian mothers may take up the idea that they are Christ's mother, and it will bring to the West the knowledge of God's divine motherhood, which they so much need. The superstitions of awe and reverence in relation to God are deeply rooted in the heart of our heart, and it takes long years to sink entirely in love. Our ideas of reverence and veneration, of awe and majesty and glory with regard to God. There is one more human representation of the divine ideal of love. It is known as Madhura, sweet, and is the highest of all such representations. It is indeed based on the highest manifestation of love in this world, and this love is also the strongest known to man. What love shakes the whole nature of man? What love runs through every atom of his being? Makes him mad, makes him forget his own nature, transforms him, makes him either a god or a demon, as the love between man and woman. In this sweet representation of divine love, God is our husband. We are all women. There are no men in this world. There is but one man, and that is He, our beloved. He that love which man gives to woman, or woman to man, has here to be given up to the Lord. All the different kinds of love which we see in the world, and with which we are more or less playing merely, have God as their one goal. But unfortunately, man does not know the infinite ocean into which this mighty river of love is constantly flowing, and foolishly he often tries to direct it to the little dolls of human beings. The tremendous love for the child that is in human nature is not for the little doll of a child. If you bestow it blindly and exclusively on the child, you will suffer in consequence. But through such suffering will come the awakening by which you are sure to find out that the love which is in you, if it is given to any human being, will sooner or later bring pain and sorrow as the result. Our love must therefore be given to the highest one, who never dies and who never changes, to Him, in the ocean of whose love there is neither ebb nor flow. Love must get its direction right. Love must get to its right destination. It must go unto Him, who is really the infinite ocean of love. All rivers flow into the ocean. Even the drop of water coming down from the mountainside cannot stop its course after reaching a brook or a river, however big it might be. At last, even that drop somehow does find its way to the ocean. God is the one goal of all our passions and emotions. If you want to be angry with Him. Chide your beloved. Chide your friend. Whom else can you safely chide? Mortal man will not patiently put up with your anger. There will be a reaction. If you are angry with me, I am sure quickly to react, because I cannot patiently put up with your anger. Say unto the beloved, why do you not come to me? Why do you leave me thus alone? Where is there any enjoyment but in Him? What enjoyment can there be in little clods of earth? It is the crystallized essence of infinite enjoyment that we have to seek, and that is in God. Let all our passions and emotions go up unto Him. They are meant for Him. For if they miss their mark and go lower, they become vile. And when they go straight to the mark, to the Lord, even the lowest of them becomes transfigured. All the energies of the human body and mind, howsoever they may express themselves, have the Lord as their one goal, as their ekiana. All loves and passions of the human heart must go to God. He is the beloved. Whom else can this heart love? He is the most beautiful, the most sublime. He is beauty itself, sublimity itself. Who in this universe is more beautiful than He? Who in this universe is more fit to become the husband than He? Who in this universe is fitter to be loved than he? So let him be the husband. Let him be the beloved. Often it so happens that divine lovers who sing of this divine love accept the language of human love in all its aspects as adequate to describe it. Fools do not understand this. They never will. They look at it only with the physical eye. They do not understand the mad throes of this spiritual love. How can they? For one kiss of thy lips, O beloved, who has been kissed by thee, has this thirst for thee increasing forever. All his sorrows vanish, and he forgets all things except thee alone. Aspire after that kiss of the beloved, that touch of his lips, which makes the bhakta mad, which makes of man a god. To him who has been blessed with such a kiss, the whole of nature changes, worlds vanish, suns and moons die out, and the universe itself melts away into that one infinite ocean of love. That is the perfection of the madness of love. The true spiritual lover does not rest even there. Even the love of husband and wife is not mad enough for him. The Bhaktas take up also the idea of illegitimate love because it is so strong. The impropriety of it is not at all the thing they have in view. The nature of this love is such that the more obstructions there are for its free play, the more passionate it becomes. The love between husband and wife is smooth. There are no obstructions there. So the Bhaktas take up the idea of a girl who is in love with her own beloved, and her mother or father or husband objects to such love. And the more anybody obstructs the course of her love, so much more is her love tending to grow in strength. Human language cannot describe how Krishna in the groves of Vrinda was madly loved. How at the sound of his voice, the ever-blessed gopis rushed out to meet him, forgetting everything, forgetting this world and its ties, its duties, its joys and its sorrows. Man, oh man, you speak of divine love and at the same time are able to attend to all the vanities of this world. Are you sincere? Where Rama is, there is no room for any desire. Where desire is, there is no room for Rama. These never coexist. Like light and darkness, they are never together. Conclusion. When this highest ideal of love is reached, philosophy is thrown away. Who will then care for it? Freedom, salvation, nirvana are all thrown away. Who cares to become free while in the enjoyment of divine love? Lord, I do not want wealth, nor friends, nor beauty, nor learning, nor even freedom. Let me be born again and again, and be thou ever my love. Be thou ever and ever my love. Who cares to become sugar, says the Bhakta. I want to taste sugar. Who will then desire to become free and one with God? I may know that I am He, yet will I take myself away from Him and become different so that I may enjoy the Beloved. That is what the Bhakta says. Love for love's sake is his highest enjoyment. Who will not be bound hand and foot 1,000 times over to enjoy the beloved. No bhakta cares for anything except love, except to love and to be loved. His unworldly love is like the tide rushing up the river. This lover goes up the river against the current. The world calls him mad. I know one whom the world used to call mad, and this was his answer. My friends, the whole world is a lunatic asylum. Some are mad after worldly love, some after name, some after fame, some after money, some after salvation and going to heaven. In this big lunatic asylum, I am also mad. I am mad after God. If you are mad after money, I am mad after God. You are mad, so am I. I think my madness is, after all, the best. The true Bhakta's love is this burning madness, before which everything else vanishes for him. The whole universe is to him full of love and love alone. That is how it seems to the lover. So when a man has this love in him, he becomes eternally blessed, eternally happy. This blessed madness of divine love alone can cure forever the disease of the world that is in us. With desire, selfishness has vanished. He has drawn near to God. He has thrown off all those vain desires of which he was full before. We all have to begin as dualists in the religion of love. God is to us a separate being, and we feel ourselves to be separate beings also. Love then comes in the middle, and man begins to approach God. And God also comes nearer and nearer to man. Man takes up all the various relationships of life, as father, as mother, as son, as friend, as master, as lover, and projects them on his ideal of love, on his God. To him, God exists as all these, and the last point of his progress is reached when he feels that he has become absolutely merged in the object of his worship. We all begin with love for ourselves, and the unfair claims of the little self make even love selfish. At last, however, comes the full blaze of light in which this little self is seen to have become one with the infinite. Man himself is transfigured in the presence of this light of love, and he realizes at last the beautiful and inspiring truth that love, the lover, and the beloved are one.